Alright, so my name's Sam Wittenweiler. I'm here to talk about an accident that occurred on one of our job sites. The accident was involving a 41-year-old laborer who was working on scaffolding. So the accident occurred on November 4th, 2019, and the laborer was working on scaffolding on the 7th floor. He was working on exterior window finishes when the incident occurred. So the account of another employee that was working nearby pretty much said he tripped on an extension cord, which was just lying loose on the scaffolding, which caused him to fall through the horizontal bracing. After falling 70 feet, he landed in a pile of scrap wood, and the crew on the ground had been disposing unused material there. So yeah, it did not make for a good fall. And yeah, it was immediate death upon fall. And as soon as the accident happened, police were notified.
So my name is Austin Schumacher, and I'm just going to be giving some brief details of the investigation that we ran. The investigation began by just taking a detailed overview of everything that happened throughout the day leading up to the incident, as well as after. The agency's first action was reading over the accident report that the GC staff filled out. This report helped out a lot with describing the events and the conditions that day. After the report was read over, we were able to determine what people we needed to talk to who were witnesses to the accident. While talking with the witnesses, they said that he did in fact trip over tripped over an extension cord that was on an incorrect spot on the scaffold. We also inspected where the pile of debris was. We determined that it was placed in a bad spot. Yes, it was still a fall from 70 feet, so it probably wouldn't have made it, but if it was a fall from the first or second level, if that debris was there, or if it was not there, it could have ended a lot better. There should not be piles of debris under scaffold, as it can disrupt the ground below it. And with that happening, workers on the lower levels could be at risk of getting struck by debris if people are throwing it down there. Some other hazards that we identified was the primary cause of the falling accident was a loose extension cord. The scaffold itself has been inspected regularly, but maintaining a clean and safe work surface had been overlooked. Upon initial erection of the structure, the extension cord had been hung to run above the standing surface, but over time, with everyday use, the wire that was used to hang it up there failed. Some other OSHA standards that are known with scaffold is employees should be prohibited from working on scaffold that's covered with snow or ice or other slippery materials so that they don't fall from there. Debris should not be allowed to accumulate on platforms or below, like we identified earlier. And the area below the scaffold to which objects can fall should be barricaded so that employees and the public are not allowed to enter.
Alright, my name is Mitch Raduli. I'm going to be talking about some of the hazard controls and the measures we take, as well as the next steps following this incident. So some of the hazards that we had identified prior to this accident would be electrocution and contact with power lines nearby scaffolding, making sure to be clear of those. Struck by hazards, whether it be falling equipment and tools or employees on the scaffold. Fall danger at heights exceeding 6 feet. We need to be really conscious of the dangers in regard to falling. Tip overs, making sure our scaffold is connected to the building properly so that high winds or poor footing doesn't tip it over and cause accidents. And then collapse, so properly assembling the scaffold, making it sturdy as possible. How we control hazards within our company: the ground must be stable and nearby excavations are not permitted so as not to disrupt the footing and the soil and sediments around the base of the scaffold. Make sure that those footings are level and they are capable of supporting loads. This includes soil tests and making sure that what's underneath the scaffold will not collapse and affect the structural integrity. We need to make sure that each level of the scaffold is level before adding another as we go up the building, and then the connections are secure on those given levels. We need to use the scaffold's manufacturer issued directions for both erection and dismantling. We can't take our own experience from past projects or past manufacturers to in any way mess with how the manufacturer is directing the dismantling and erection. If we do, it could really it could cause tip overs or problems in the erection. We never need to use parts from different scaffolds when erecting a certain manufacturer issued scaffold brand. We can't really cross-pollinate in that regard. We can never exceed the load capacity of the scaffold, or can't have work being done above the scaffold, such as cranes or lifts moving material above it or near it, so as not to mess with how it's constructed. And lastly, how we control hazards is proper training shall always be given to everyone involved with the erection and dismantling, with competent people involved in that. So after this incident, the next steps taken by our construction company, personal fall protection has always been a requirement, both by OSHA as well as our own rules, but we can do a better job of enforcing it. All employees have been retrained regarding personal fall protection, and punishments have been established for those who continue not to use it. We have put down a no tolerance policy so that following this issue there won't be any more. We will be maintaining a much cleaner and more organized job site. We will recognize that the surface underneath the scaffold might not have been a direct contributor to the 70-foot fall death, but like Austin had mentioned, if this were from the second or third story, and it's a survivable distance, the messy job site does not help in any way. All extension cords, the main contributor to this accident, must be attached to the surface they are on via fasteners or extension cord hiders, so as not to have any tripping hazards up on the scaffold. And then lastly, we will now be enclosing the side of the scaffold opposite of the building with metal fencing. We were already up to standard with the bracing that we had, the fencing that we had, but we will take extra measures this time to make sure it is metal fencing and it will not break if a fall were to go through.